The first time Zara Bennett understood that nobody was going to help her, it wasn't when her ex-husband grabbed her arm. It was when the crowd stepped back to make space. Not to protect her, but to watch. Charlotte Douglas International Airport was buzzing, boarding calls echoing overhead, suitcase wheels rattling against tile, espresso machines hissing behind polished counters. And right in the middle of it, Derek found her. "You really thought you could disappear?" he hissed, fingers locking around her wrist like steel. Pain shot up Zara's arm. 7-year-old Layla dropped her small backpack and clung to her mother's coat. "Stop, you're hurting her." Phones lifted instantly. Someone whispered, "Oh my God," but nobody moved forward. Zara tried to steady her breathing. She had rehearsed this moment in her head 100 times. If he ever found her, if he ever cornered her. "Stay calm, don't provoke him. I don't want trouble," she said quietly. Derek laughed, loud enough for strangers to hear. "You should have thought about that before you took my daughter." My daughter, like Layla, was an object. Like Zara hadn't spent years shielding that child from fists, from screaming, from slammed doors. Derek shoved her suitcase. It skidded across the polished floor and burst open. Clothes spilled out. A framed school photo shattered on impact. The crack echoed, and Layla started crying. That sound did something to Zara. Not fear, not weakness. Rage. But she swallowed it, because rage only made him worse. "Let go of me," she said, voice low. Instead, he yanked her forward. She stumbled. The crowd flinched, but still no one stepped in. And through the glass walls of the private executive lounge above the terminal floor, someone was watching. Adrian Park did not react like other men. He didn't gasp. He didn't stand abruptly. He didn't curse under his breath. He observed. Seated alone at a long marble table, his laptop open before him, reviewing international security contracts worth more than most companies made in a year. But his focus was no longer on the screen. It was on the child. On the way, the little girl stepped between her mother and danger. On the way, the mother refused to cry. Adrian's expression did not change, but something behind his eyes did. Down below, Derek's voice grew louder. "You think some new city is going to protect you? You think paperwork scares me?" He shoved Zara hard. She hit the floor. The sound was sickening. Layla screamed, and the crowd gasped, not in action, but in spectacle. Inside the lounge, Adrian slowly closed his laptop. The click was soft. Final. His head of security looked up immediately. "Sir?" Adrian stood, adjusting the cuff of his suit jacket with precise calm. "Bring him to the ground," he said. No raised voice. No emotion. Just instruction. 4 men moved at once. By the time Derek realized what was happening, his wrist had been twisted behind his back, and his knees were forced against the cold airport tile. "What the hell?" Derek shouted, his cheek pressed against the floor. The crowd stepped back further. Now, fear replacing curiosity. And then Adrian descended the stairs. He didn't rush. He didn't posture. He didn't look angry, which somehow made him far more terrifying. His shoes stopped inches from Derek's face. He studied him the way someone might examine a structural flaw. "You are creating a disturbance," Adrian said evenly. Derek spat near his shoe. "Mind your business." Adrian didn't blink. "I am." He shifted his gaze. Not to the man. To the woman. Zara was pushing herself up slowly, refusing to let anyone help her. Her lip was bleeding slightly. Her hands were shaking, but she kept her spine straight. Adrian noticed that. He crouched, not to Derek, to Layla. "Are you injured?" he asked softly. His voice had changed. Not warmer, just gentler. Layla shook her head, tears streaking her cheeks. "He always finds us," she whispered. For the first time, something cold and deliberate sharpened Adrian's expression. He stood again. "To airport police," he said calmly to his team. "And forward everything to legal." Full background. Derek struggled. "You don't know who you're messing with." Adrian tilted his head slightly. "You are correct," he replied. Derek was dragged away, shouting threats that grew smaller with distance. Silence followed. The crowd dispersed quickly, as if embarrassed by their own inaction. Zara brushed glass from her jeans. "Thank you," she said, voice steady despite everything. "But we didn't need." "Yes, Adrian interrupted quietly. You did. She met his eyes fully now. Dark, controlled, assessing. Not once had he looked impressed with himself. Not once had he asked for gratitude. Are you relocating? He asked. Yes. Because of him? Yes. A pause. He absorbed that. And do you believe distance will stop him? She didn't answer, because they both knew the truth. Layla tugged Zara's sleeve. Mom, she whispered, staring up at Adrian. Is he famous? Adrian's mouth twitched slightly. No, he said. I prefer privacy. Zara noticed the subtle tension in the air around him. The way airport staff were suddenly very attentive. The way security treated him with quiet respect. Who are you? She asked carefully. He reached into his inner pocket and handed her a matte black card. No logo, no slogan, just a name. Adrian Park. Park International Risk and Security. Her breath caught slightly. Even she knew that company. Global security infrastructure. High-level threat containment. Quiet power. I'm not accepting charity, she said immediately. His gaze sharpened. I did not offer charity. If he contacts you again, Adrian continued, call the number on that card. It reaches me directly. Why? She asked. And for the first time, he didn't answer immediately. His eyes flickered to Layla, then back to Zara. Because predators repeat behavior, he said calmly. And I do not allow patterns to continue. Something about the way he said it made her pulse shift. Boarding was announced over the speakers. Adrian glanced toward the gate. Then back at Layla. You were brave, he told her. I was scared, she whispered. Bravery and fear often arrive together. Layla hesitated, then hugged him suddenly around the waist. Zara stiffened. Adrian froze for half a second. Then slowly, he placed a hand gently on the child's back. Not awkward, not distant. Careful. He stepped back first. Professional again. My flight is boarding, he said. And just like that, he walked away. No dramatic pause. No lingering stare. But halfway to the gate, he touched the small earpiece hidden beneath his collar. Discreet monitoring, he said quietly. Mother and child. Immediate priority. His tone remained even. But something inside him had shifted. Because this was no longer random interference. This was a risk assessment. And Adrian Park did not ignore risk. Especially when it involved a child who had learned to beg strangers for mercy. On the other side of the terminal, Zara watched him disappear beyond security. Her hand tightened around the black card. For the first time in years, someone powerful hadn't tried to control her, hadn't tried to own her, hadn't tried to silence her. He had simply stepped in, and then stepped back. She told herself it was over. Just an airport incident. Just a stranger with influence. But high above the clouds that night on a private jet rerouted without explanation, Adrian reviewed Derek's full background file. And what he found made his jaw tighten. This wasn't finished. Not even close. New York skyline glowed under the late afternoon sun, golden light reflecting off glass towers. Zara Bennett held Layla's hand tightly as they walked toward a small coffee shop near their temporary apartment. She had almost convinced herself the world was safe. Almost. But the city had a way of reminding her it wasn't. A man in a gray hoodie loitered across the street. To be casual. Zara froze mid-step. Her heart skipped. Layla tugged at her sleeve. Mom, are we going the right way? Zara swallowed hard. Yes. Just keep walking. She scanned every face, every movement, every shadow. Years of fear sharpened her instincts. She knew this was not a coincidence. Then, a soft shadow appeared beside her. Adrian Park. Not through the street. Not from the cafe. Just there, silent, watchful, protective. You're here again, Zara said, her voice trembling. I told you, Adrian said softly. You're being watched. I ensure you are safe. Zara wanted to argue, to tell him they didn't need a bodyguard. But the tension behind her eyes betrayed her. She had already felt the difference between his presence and the unknown danger lurking in plain sight. Inside the coffee shop, the barista greeted them. Zara ordered a cappuccino, Layla a hot chocolate, but every sip felt tense, every sound amplified. The door chimed. The hoodie man entered, acting casual. He glanced around, and for a heartbeat, Zara thought he saw her. But Adrian was already moving. Not aggressively, not visibly. He simply positioned himself between Zara and the stranger, his calm aura like a shield. The man lingered near the counter, then left. But Zara knew it wasn't over. "This is exhausting," Zara muttered to Adrian once they left. "Fear is energy," Adrian said. "It keeps you alive. Channel it wisely." Layla tilted her head. "He's scary, but nice?" Adrian's lips twitched. "Yes. Scary when needed. Nice when earned." Back at the apartment, Zara tried to focus on her design work, but her mind wandered constantly. Then, an envelope slid under the door. Inside, a small device to monitor surrounding streets. Instructions for a secure route to school and studio. A simple note. Patterns repeat. Stay vigilant. AP. Zara's chest tightened. Every instinct screamed to obey. By evening, Layla wanted to draw. Zara watched her sketch. "Mom," Layla said, "I think he's like a superhero. But he doesn't wear a cape." Zara smiled faintly. "Yes, he has his own way." Her eyes, however, remained tense. She knew too well, even heroes couldn't always prevent the unexpected. The following morning, Zara left for her studio. Adrian followed discreetly, always out of sight, but close enough that she could sense him. At the subway, a man bumped into her, tried to grab her bag. Adrenaline surged. She twisted free instinctively, heart pounding. Before she could react further, Adrian was there. Not by force, not by shouting, just a shadow appearing beside her, calm, commanding presence. "You're safe," he said quietly. Zara began to notice subtle changes in herself. She no longer flinched at every stranger. Her breathing had steadied. Layla felt safer too. But she also felt something unfamiliar, a tension in her chest whenever Adrian's eyes lingered on her. Not threatening, not invasive, just assessing, protective, attentive. Later that day, Zara returned home to find Adrian waiting outside her door. "May I come in?" he asked. She hesitated, then nodded. Inside, he placed a folder on the table. Photos, notes, and observations of Derek's recent movements. "This is what I know," he said. "He may try to track you again. I want you prepared." Zara felt the weight of his planning. Not just reactive, proactive. Every move considered. Every potential threat calculated. As night fell, Layla slept. Zara stood by the window, staring at the city lights. She thought about Adrian, about how he had entered her life without asking, about how he seemed to see every danger she couldn't even imagine. And then she realized something terrifying. She didn't want him to leave. Her life had changed again, but this time, it wasn't only about survival. It was about trust, and maybe something more. Zara Bennett hadn't slept well in days. The shadows of New York felt heavier, more oppressive. Every siren, every passerby, every sudden noise made her flinch. Layla, oblivious to the city's danger, slept curled under the blankets, soft breathing steady, a stark contrast to her mother's racing heart. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Miss Bennett, you are in danger. Movement outside your building suggests surveillance by Derek's associates. Avoid leaving for the next 48 hours unless accompanied," Adrian's calm voice said. Zara's stomach tightened. "Why does he care so much? I barely know him." "You will understand in time," Adrian replied. "For now, trust me." By noon, Zara noticed another subtle warning. A coffee cup left near the building's lobby, clearly intended for anyone observing. A small, silent message someone was watching. She gasped when she saw it, Layla rushing to her side. "Mom, what is it?" "Nothing. Nothing," Zara said quickly, hiding the cup. But her mind raced. Later, she went to the studio under Adrian's guidance. A nondescript SUV trailed her discreetly. She knew it wasn't coincidence. She felt that low prickle of instinct that screamed someone was following. Inside the studio, Adrian appeared quietly, almost impossibly, not alarming, just there. His presence filled the room, a mix of calm control and unspoken power. "You're too visible," he said softly. "You attract attention unintentionally. I'll ensure it doesn't compromise you." Zara stared at him. Her pulse quickened, not just from fear, but from something she couldn't name. The faint warmth in his gaze contrasted sharply with the threat of the city outside. Hours later, Derek made his first direct move. A delivery man rang Zara's apartment. She opened the door for a package. Inside, a small, black box. No sender. Her hands trembled. Layla tugged at her sleeve, concerned. Adrian's voice echoed in her mind from the previous calls. Patterns repeat. She hesitated, then carefully followed Adrian's instructions to secure the package. It contained nothing explosive, but the message was clear. They could reach her anywhere. Zara's heart pounded. She realized just how pervasive Derek's obsession was, and how Adrian's silent intervention was the only thing keeping them safe. That evening, Adrian appeared outside her window again. Layla spotted him first. "Mom, he's there." Zara forced a calm smile. "It's okay, sweetie. He's watching out for us." Layla tilted her head, innocent curiosity sparkling in her eyes. "He's like a superhero who doesn't wear a cape." Adrian's lips curved subtly. "Even superheroes have rules." Zara blinked at him, wondering what rules he followed and how far he would go to protect them. The next day, Derek escalated further. While Zara and Layla walked in the nearby park, a man tried to block their path, aggressive, threatening. Adrenaline surged. Zara grabbed Layla, stepping back, heart racing. She prepared to fight. Then, without a sound, Adrian was there. Calm, precise. In one fluid motion, he separated the stranger from Zara and Layla. The man froze, intimidated by the silent authority in Adrian's gaze, then fled without a word. Zara exhaled shakily. How do you do that?" "Years of preparation," Adrian said, "and knowing exactly when to intervene." That night, Zara lay awake, thinking about the day. Layla slept soundly. Her mind kept returning to Adrian. The calm confidence, the silent authority, the protection that seemed effortless. A warmth began creeping in something unfamiliar. Comfort, trust, maybe even attraction. She shook her head. This wasn't the time. Survival first, emotions later. But deep down, she knew Adrian's presence had changed something fundamental. She no longer felt powerless. Days passed. Derek's harassment continued, but Adrian's interventions kept them safe. Yet Zara could sense the psychological games Derek played. Packages, strangers, shadowed figures he wanted to instill fear. And it worked until Adrian's presence reminded her she wasn't alone. One evening, Adrian contacted Zara directly. "I need to know something," he said calmly. "Will you let me take complete control of your protection? Not because I want to, but because I must." Zara's throat tightened. The weight of the choice pressed on her. I don't know," she admitted, voice barely above a whisper. "You will decide soon," Adrian replied. "For now, follow instructions and trust the system. Layla's safety comes first." Later, as Layla slept, Zara looked out the window. Adrian was gone, but she could feel his presence lingering, invisible, silent, watchful. Her life had changed completely. Danger was constant. Protection was unwavering. Somewhere in the shadows, Adrian waited. Calm, silent, ready. She realized, terrifyingly, that she didn't just rely on him for safety anymore. She had started to depend on him. Zara Bennett could feel the city breathing against her skin, the hum of New York streets pressing against the walls of her temporary apartment. Every passing siren, every sudden horn, made her flinch, as if the world itself conspired to remind her she was never truly safe. Layla's laughter floated from the bedroom, a fragile note of innocence in the chaos, and Zara pressed a hand to her chest, willing herself to remain calm. The phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Zara," Adrian's voice said, calm and measured. "You must remain indoors tonight. Derek is closer than before. His associates are monitoring exits near your building. Avoid leaving unless absolutely necessary." Zara's stomach tightened. "Why do you care so much?" she whispered, not wanting Layla to hear. "You will understand in time," Adrian said. "For now, trust me. Your safety comes first." She felt a chill creep over her. Derek was bold now, no longer hiding behind shadows. Even with Adrian's warnings, she knew his reach had grown. Every package, every stranger, every street corner could be a threat. Hours later, Zara dared to step outside for fresh air. Layla held her hand tightly, small fingers trembling against her own. They walked down the sidewalk, careful, scanning constantly. And there he was. A man, perfectly still, leaning against a lamppost, hoodie pulled low over his face, watching. Zara froze, her pulse hammering in her ears. Adrian appeared before she could react, silent, calm, a shadow blending into the crowd until the moment he stepped forward. The stranger's eyes met his, and for a heartbeat, the world seemed suspended. Then the man backed away and disappeared into the crowd. Layla tugged at Zara's sleeve. "Mom, is he gone?" Zara forced a smile, but her heart didn't calm. "Yes, he's gone," she whispered, even though part of her knew it was temporary. Back at the apartment, Zara tried to focus on work, but every sound made her jump. Her thoughts kept returning to Adrian's presence, his calm authority, the way he seemed to predict every threat before it happened. She hated feeling dependent, yet the truth was undeniable. She had never felt safer. That evening, Derek escalated further. A delivery arrived at their door, a small, black envelope with no return address. Layla's eyes widened in curiosity, and Zara's pulse spiked. She recognized the signature message, the calculated, silent threat that had become Derek's hallmark. Adrian arrived within minutes, seemingly out of nowhere. He didn't raise his voice, didn't move aggressively. He simply scanned the envelope, checked the surrounding area, and then handed Zara a small device. "Scan for any anomalies. If he's here, you'll know immediately." Zara nodded, hands trembling. "Thank you. I don't know how to. I don't know what I'd do without you." Adrian's gaze softened just slightly, enough for her to feel a warmth she didn't want to admit. "You won't have to find out," he said, calm and shakable, almost unnervingly confident. Over the next day, Zara began noticing small changes in herself. She walked with more awareness, a new caution layered beneath each step, but also a strange relief that she wasn't entirely alone. Layla's laughter reminded her of what she was protecting, and Adrian's constant presence reminded her that survival didn't have to be lonely. That night, as the city lights flickered below, Zara sat by the window, watching shadows dance across the streets. Adrian appeared again, inside, unmoving, a silent sentinel. She could feel him watching, protective, calculating. Her chest tightened. Something inside her stirred. A mix of relief, fear, and something else. Something that made her pulse quicken in ways that had nothing to do with Derek's threats. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. Derek's name wasn't there, only a string of numbers she didn't recognize. She hesitated, then answered. "This is Derek. I know where you are." Zara froze. The calm in Adrian's voice echoed in her mind. "You are safe. Trust me." She swallowed. "You'll never find us," she said, voice steady despite the fear. There was a pause, then a low chuckle. "We'll see. You can't hide forever." Before she could respond, the call ended. Her hands shook as she looked at Layla, who had sensed the tension. "Mom, are we okay?" Zara knelt beside her daughter, forcing a calm smile. "Yes, we're okay," she said, even though the adrenaline still raced through her veins. Adrian appeared at the window again, eyes meeting hers. Not a word was spoken, but the message was clear. "I'm here. You're safe." That night, Zara couldn't sleep. She thought about Derek, about Adrian, about the fragile balance of danger and protection. She realized something terrifying. She wasn't just relying on Adrian for her life. She was beginning to trust him, to depend on him. And that trust stirred something she hadn't expected, a warmth in her chest, a flutter of hope, and something dangerously close to attraction. She closed her eyes, knowing one thing for certain: Derek's proximity would only grow, the threats would escalate, and survival would demand more from both her and Adrian than either of them had faced before. But deep down, Zara knew one undeniable truth. With Adrian by her side, she wasn't alone. Not anymore. Zara Bennett hadn't expected the city to feel this small. Even in the bustling streets of New York, every shadow seemed to follow her, every passerby a potential observer. She walked with Layla through the park, the child's laughter a fragile shield against the constant tension pressing down on her. Yet tension wasn't the only thing threading through her chest. Adrian's presence lingered in her mind, an invisible force shaping her heartbeat, her thoughts, even the way she breathed. Adrian had been silent for hours, watching from a distance, not interfering or speaking, but always present. That quiet vigilance stirred something strange in Zara, a warmth she couldn't name, a sense of safety she hadn't known in years, and a dangerous curiosity about the man who had entered her life without permission and yet held such power over it. They stopped near a fountain, and Layla tugged at her sleeve. "Mom, can we feed the ducks?" Zara knelt beside her, glancing around nervously. "Of course, but stay close." She felt it before she saw it. Movement in the corner of her eye. Derek's associate, just standing there, watching. Before panic could take hold, Adrian stepped forward, silent as the shadows themselves. One glance from him, calm and unyielding, and the man disappeared into the crowd. Layla looked up at her mother. "Mom, who's that?" Zara swallowed hard. "No one, just a stranger," she lied, though her pulse still raced. Later that evening, Zara returned to the apartment. The building felt unnervingly quiet, almost too quiet. Her instincts screamed danger. Then a soft tap at the door. She froze. Adrian appeared before she could reach the peephole. Not entering, just standing there, calm and unshakable. "I've secured the perimeter," he said softly. "There's no immediate threat, but Derek will escalate. Always." Zara exhaled, relief mingling with fear. "I don't know how you do it." "How you know?" He didn't answer, only nodded, as if words weren't necessary. That night, Zara sat by the window, Layla asleep, city lights reflecting on the glass. She thought about Adrian, the way he moved, the quiet confidence, the subtle attention that made her feel both safe and unnervingly aware of him. She hated that thought, and yet, she couldn't stop it. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Zara," Adrian's voice said. "I need to know something. Will you allow me full discretion in protecting you and Layla?" She swallowed hard. I don't know. It's not easy to trust someone like you." "You will," he said softly. "In time. For now, follow instructions. Your life and hers depend on it." The following morning, Derek's threats escalated further. A small package arrived at the door, a message written in the precise, calculated style Zara had learned to dread. There was no violence, no explosives, only a note. "We are closer than you think." Adrenaline surged. Layla clung to her hand. Zara forced calm, but her pulse raced. Adrian appeared minutes later, silent as always. He scanned the building, then handed her a small device. "Any movement will be detected immediately. You are not alone." Hours later, Zara found herself sitting across from Adrian at a quiet cafe. Not a word about danger, not a discussion of strategy, just him, watching, calm, silent, unyielding. The warmth returned, stronger this time. A flutter she hadn't expected, a pull toward him she couldn't deny. "Why do you care so much?" she whispered. Adrian's gaze softened slightly. "Because you and Layla matter. Because fear has no place when I am here. Because I will not allow harm to touch you." Zara's breath caught. She didn't know whether to feel grateful or something more. A part of her hated this dependency, this trust. Yet another part, a deeper, hidden part, long starved of safety, wanted to surrender to it. They walked home, silent, except for the soft steps of Layla between them. The air felt charged, heavy with unspoken words, invisible threats, and the slow, dangerous pull between them. That night, Zara could barely sleep. She lay awake, thinking of Adrian, of Derek, of the precarious balance of fear and protection. And she realized terrifyingly that she no longer wanted him to leave. Not just for safety, not just for Layla. She wanted him. Her pulse raced at the thought. Morning arrived with the city's hum. Derek had been silent for hours, but Zara knew it was only temporary. Danger would rise again. She felt it in every shadow, in every passerby. And Adrian's watchful presence remained, unseen but felt, like the pulse of the city itself. Zara tightened her grip on Layla's hand. "We will survive this," she whispered, more to herself than the child. Adrian appeared outside the window, silent, his gaze meeting hers. No words, no gestures. Just a promise, invisible but absolute. I will protect you no matter what. And Zara understood. Survival was no longer just about escaping danger. It was about learning to trust, learning to depend, learning to love. Zara Bennett hadn't slept well in days. The shadows of New York felt heavier, more oppressive. Every siren, every passerby, every sudden noise made her flinch. Layla, oblivious to the city's danger, slept curled under the blankets, soft breathing steady, a stark contrast to her mother's racing heart. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Miss Bennett, you are in danger. Movement outside your building suggests surveillance by Derek's associates. Avoid leaving for the next 48 hours unless accompanied, Adrian's calm voice said. Zara's stomach tightened. Why does he care so much? I barely know him. You will understand in time, Adrian replied. For now, trust me. She felt a chill creep over her. Derek was bold now, no longer hiding behind shadows. Even with Adrian's warnings, she knew his reach had grown. Every package, every stranger, every street corner could be a threat. By noon, Zara received another subtle warning. A coffee cup had been left near the building's lobby for anyone to find. A small, silent message someone was watching. She gasped when she saw it. Layla rushed to her side. Mom, what is it? Nothing. Nothing, Zara said quickly, hiding the cup. But her mind raced. Later, she went to the studio under Adrian's guidance. A nondescript SUV trailed her discreetly. She knew it wasn't coincidence that low prickle of instinct screamed. Someone was following. Inside the studio, Adrian appeared quietly, almost impossibly, not alarming, just there. His presence filled the room, a mix of calm control and unspoken power. You're too visible, he said softly. You attract attention unintentionally. I'll ensure it doesn't compromise you. Zara stared at him. Her pulse quickened, not just from fear, but from something she couldn't name. The faint warmth in his gaze contrasted sharply with the threat of the city outside. Hours later, Derek made his first direct move. A delivery man rang Zara's apartment. She opened the door for a package. Inside, a small, black box. No sender. Her hands trembled. Layla tugged at her sleeve, concerned. Adrian's voice echoed in her mind from the previous calls. Patterns repeat. She hesitated, then carefully followed Adrian's instructions to secure the package. It contained nothing explosive, but the message was clear. They could reach her anywhere. Zara's heart pounded. She realized just how pervasive Derek's obsession was, and how Adrian's silent intervention was the only thing keeping them safe. That evening, Adrian appeared outside her window again. Layla spotted him first. Mom, he's there. Zara forced a calm smile. It's okay, sweetie. He's watching out for us. Layla tilted her head, innocent curiosity sparkling in her eyes. He's like a superhero who doesn't wear a cape. Adrian's lips curved subtly. Even superheroes have rules. Zara blinked at him, wondering what rules he followed and how far he would go to protect them. The next day, Derek escalated further. While Zara and Layla walked in the nearby park, a man tried to block their path, aggressive, threatening. Adrenaline surged. Zara grabbed Layla, stepping back. Heart racing, she prepared to fight. Then, without a sound, Adrian was there. Calm, precise. In one fluid motion, he separated the stranger from Zara and Layla. The man froze, intimidated by the silent authority in Adrian's gaze, then fled without a word. Zara exhaled shakily. How do you do that? Years of preparation, Adrian said, and knowing exactly when to intervene. That night, Zara lay awake, thinking about the day. Layla slept soundly. Her mind kept returning to Adrian. The calm confidence, the silent authority, the protection that seemed effortless. A warmth began creeping in. Something unfamiliar. Comfort, trust, maybe even attraction. She shook her head. This wasn't the time. Survival first, emotions later. But deep down, she knew Adrian's presence had changed something fundamental. She no longer felt powerless. Days passed. Derek's harassment continued, but Adrian's interventions kept them safe. Yet Zara could sense the psychological games Derek played. Packages, strangers, shadowed figures he wanted to instill fear. And it worked until Adrian's presence reminded her she wasn't alone. One evening, Adrian contacted Zara directly. "I need to know something," he said calmly. "Will you let me take complete control of your protection? Not because I want to, but because I must." Zara's throat tightened. The weight of the choice pressed on her. I don't know," she admitted, voice barely above a whisper. "You will decide soon," Adrian replied. "For now, follow instructions and trust the system. Layla's safety comes first." Later, as Layla slept, Zara looked out the window. Adrian was gone, but she could feel his presence lingering, invisible, silent, watchful. Her life had changed completely. Danger was constant. Protection was unwavering. And somewhere in the shadows, Adrian waited. Calm, silent, ready. She realized terrifyingly that she didn't just rely on him for safety anymore. She had started to depend on him, and that dependence frightened her more than Derek ever could. Zara Bennett had never felt the city feel smaller, heavier, and more suffocating than tonight. The streets pulsed with life, lights flickering across cracked pavement, but the danger wasn't in the city, it was in the presence of someone who refused to let go. Derek. Zara clutched Layla's hand tightly as they approached their apartment building. Every instinct screamed danger. Every passerby seemed a potential observer. Her phone buzzed. "Adrian. Stay inside," he said, voice calm but steely. "They are closer than ever. I can see their approach. Don't panic, but be ready." Zara exhaled shakily. I can't believe this is happening again," she whispered. "You don't have to face it alone," Adrian reassured her. "Trust me. Follow my instructions." Inside, Zara barricaded the door, pulling Layla close. Silence filled the apartment until a soft thud echoed from the hallway. Her pulse raced. Every shadow seemed alive. A note slipped under the door. "You can't hide forever." Adrian appeared moments later, silent, commanding. His presence alone made Zara's racing heart settle slightly, but only slightly. Derek's obsession had reached a dangerous peak. Adrian scanned the room, then placed a small sensor device on the table, tracking every movement in the hallways. Hours passed. Derek didn't attack physically yet, but the psychological warfare suffocated Zara. Every step, every glance over her shoulder, full of tension. Her thoughts kept drifting to Adrian, the calm authority, the quiet warmth in his gaze that made her pulse quicken. She hated how much she depended on him, and yet, she couldn't stop wanting his protection. Suddenly, the building lights flickered. Darkness swallowed the apartment. Layla cried out. Zara's hands trembled as she reached for a flashlight. A shadow moved in the hall. Adrian appeared, impossibly fast, blocking the hallway. Calm, collected, silent. "Stay behind me," he whispered. The intruder stepped closer. Derek had made it inside. Zara's heart froze. Survival was no longer avoidable. Adrian moved with precision, every movement calculated. Derek lunged. Adrian deflected and grabbed him, twisting the arm with almost inhuman strength. The gun skidded across the floor. A heartbeat, then another. The struggle was chaotic, but controlled Adrian using every ounce of his skill. Zara's heart raced, her hands shaking as she shielded Layla. Derek screamed, rage mixing with fear. Then, a gunshot echoed, ricocheting off the walls. Adrian dove, knocking Derek to the floor, restraining him. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had called, anticipating exactly what was about to happen. Derek's eyes flickered toward Zara, hatred and obsession twisted in his glare. "You'll regret this," he spat. "No, you're finished," Adrian said, unwavering. Minutes later, Derek was finally in custody. Zara sank to the floor, shaking. Layla ran into her arms, sobbing. Gratitude, and something far deeper reflected in her eyes as she looked up at Adrian. Hours later, the city quieted. Adrian and Zara sat on the small balcony, Layla asleep inside. The cool night breeze carried the scent of rain and asphalt. Zara's voice trembled. I don't know how to thank you. You saved us. All of us." Adrian's gaze softened. "You don't need to thank me. I only acted because it was necessary. Because you matter. Because she matters. And because..." He paused, eyes locking with hers. "Because I wanted to." Zara's breath caught. For so long, she had been cautious, afraid, unwilling to trust anyone fully. But now, with Adrian beside her, she realized she didn't just trust him anymore. She loved him. Adrian reached for her hand. Fingers entwined naturally, almost as if fate itself had written this moment. He leaned closer. "You've survived more than most," he said softly. "And yet, you still choose to live, to protect, to love. That is why I am here." Zara's heart raced. I never expected this. Not from anyone. "I know," he whispered. "And you will never face this alone again. Not while I am here." The night deepened, shadows stretching across the city. Zara realized survival was never just about escaping Derek. It was about finding strength, trust, and the capacity to love again. Then her phone buzzed. A message appeared from an unknown number. "You think it's over?" Derek was just a pawn. "The real game begins tomorrow. And Zara, he's watching you. Always." Zara froze. Breath caught. Her eyes met Adrian's, sharp, tense, and ready. "Not now," he said, voice calm but steely. "Tonight, you rest. Tomorrow, the storm begins. And this time, it's bigger than Derek." Layla stirred. Adrian held Zara's hand, firm and protective. Together, they faced the quiet city, a fragile peace settling over them, but shadows lingered, and something far more dangerous waited in the dark corners of New York. For the first time in years, Zara felt hope, and a thrill of something she hadn't expected: love.